Also, you have to check out my shirt.
I knew you were going to put it on.
Shaka
You
when
were
the
sure.
walls fell.
Of
Nice.
course, I
Oh
was like, I
God.
saw this, and I was like, I have to buy this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just add it to my collection of obscure nerd shirts that only other nerds will know.
You're just continuing to invest in niche shirts. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
Has it gotten worse since now that you're like doing this podcast? You like think about it more often?
Oh yeah, because it like has allowed me to like fully lean into my into my nerdisms.
Right.
Mike is just enabling. That's all.
I'm an enabler.
Hail them.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Hailing frequencies. Open.
I don't know why I keep giving alien street food a chance. It's always such a gamble.
Captain, we're being hailed.
On screen.
Hello and welcome to another Hailing Frequencies Open podcast where we're trekking through the past and future of Star Trek. As always, I'm your host, Mike Jones, and joining me via the magic of the internet are my co-host, Damien and Lenita. Say hi, guys.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Hello, Mike Jones.
And joining us today, longtime listener, sometimes guest, always husband, my husband, Tim.
Hey.
Ba-da-bum-bum-bum.
My long lost cousin Tim.
Yeah. Oh yes, Damien and I
We're related.
we're related, or so we think. So we just have leaned into that hard.
He's an O'Donnell on his
It's like
dad's
you're-
side. I'm an O'Donnell on my mom's side. We are
Oh, there you go.
clearly related.
We so clearly related.
Clearly, the resemblance,
Just like Mike Jones and Lenita Ward Jones are clearly related.
clearly.
More like his people may have owned my people at some point.
We were always poor. I doubt it. Not good. We weren't good people. We were just poor.
Just
Did you know that at some points in history, when you committed crimes in England, you could be deported to the New World? That's how the Joneses got here.
Oh, I love that story.
Okay.
Makes sense.
God.
So today, we're going to talk
Another frivolous
about
topic.
we're already off topic. We're going to talk about hair in Star Trek. And this came up, especially in the last episode. I just listened to it again. We kept mentioning Kira Nerissa's hair in the pilot versus later. And really, that could be a whole episode. So that's what this is.
A whole episode of hair.
Of hair. So, dear listener, there is a little Google slideshow of images that we will be referencing in no particular order. So that should be in the show notes at hailingfrequenciesopen.com. So look for that there. This is episode 70, hair, if you're looking for those show notes. So I was thinking we could start back at the original series in the 60s. You know, Hey Mama, Welcome to the 60s. Hairspray was big. Wigs were big. Beehives were a thing. And the women, the mini skirt wearing women in Star Trek had big old hair.
The bigger the hair, or the higher the hair, the closer to God.
Close to God.
Yeah, the closer to God. Yeah.
Closer to the stars. So let's start with the diva herself, Miss Nichelle Nichols, who wore, I think, a number of wigs during the show. Of the three pictures I have here, I don't think any of that is her real hair. What do you think?
Absolutely not.
There's no way that any of that's
No way.
real hair.
Yeah. I think, and I should have included it on here. I think we see her real hair in the movie. In the first one, she has like a natural, like a fro going on in the motion picture. It's not big. Anyway, I should have included it. I'll add that picture later. But I don't know about the later movies because her hair changes. But I think I think what they were going for is in this 60s version of the future that I don't know, like there was no limits. I don't know. What do you think? Like
Well, I
Mine
love
is-
Why?
I love the one on the upper. So we're looking at this one on the upper left where she has almost like these giant like rings across the front, which
Mhm.
like is part of
Mhm.
this larger TOS theme of like hair that is actually impossible.
Right. That part of the hair is a different color.
Yeah, see, and here's the thing, boys, is that that hair is very possible because all
That hair
those
is
are
very possible.
very and on possible on real hair. All it is a nice big pin curl that someone has
Mhm.
barrel curled, rolled, stuck a bobby pin in. The hair color
Oh.
difference, that's an easy little dye job. I want a streak of something. And I love the fact that it's an amalgamation of like 6 different hairstyles. You got a short
Right.
cut in the back. You got a fringe. That long piece is longer than anything else on her head that's
Yeah.
coming across. That bouffant is teased and pulled back. It's like all 60s all the time.
Well, and she also has
Yeah.
what appears to be like a Spock sideburn.
She
Absolutely.
does. We'll discuss sideburns in a minute.
Sorry.
There's also an image
You'll-
on here from I think Tholian Webb where we see her off duty. So I think her hair is down here, and I think we're supposed to believe this is what happens when she lets her hair down, but that's just a whole other wig. Like she wouldn't.
But see, that's the what I love. One of the things I love about Star Trek is that from beginning, whether they did it intentionally or not, from beginning to now, it's the magic of Black women hair. Like,
Mm.
like no matter what, whether it's purchased, grown, braided, pressed, we can do anything. So it's like, yes, honestly, it could be that that hairstyle that we first see lays down into that, right? Like because that piece that is waved over is super long. It's giving you the idea like she's got longer hair. She can
Ah.
pin it up. Like there are ways people who have locks that are like midway down their back. You can style it in such a way where you twist it that you can give yourself a bob, but then when you want to take them down, they unfurl to
Mhm.
your butt. So it's possible. I mean, we all know it's a wig, but it is possible that bouffant turns into coiffed, turns into relaxed. I'm in a negligee. Let me take all the pins out of my hair except for a few, because the hair's got to be off my face, type of deal.
Do you think that we ever saw her real hair in that series?
In the
don't-
series, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I
Because
I would assume for time and energy that never.
and also because I doubt there was a person who knew how to do her hair. If her hair was not
Correct.
Sure.
processed or relaxed, problem today, like they would have been like, we're putting a wig cap on you, we're putting a wig on you, pin that
Yeah.
sucker in, here you go.
Well, on the
Has
next
she ever-
slide. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Did she ever speak about her hair in that like it was probably very likely that a white person was styling those wigs as well. I
Mhm.
wonder what kind of input she did or didn't give.
That's a great question.
Well, and if you're her, chances are the way that any of those actors were treated back then, and let's not far-fetched to presume, especially her, you were just lucky to have a job. And you probably weren't
Mhm.
careful with the demands that you made unless you were probably Bill Shatner.
Sure.
And yet looking at these three pictures, she seemed of the time period correctly. Like, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like the 60s, like Black women were wearing their hair like that. Maybe not as much, but definitely like, so someone was paying attention. So I just wonder if that was the wig
Absolutely.
stylist or her or both.
Probably both, but maybe like she said, hey, if we're gonna do my hair in a style, like think of the Supremes or
Mm.
like
Right.
here are the pop stars of the time. Here are the most popular hairstyles that famous people are wearing. So it's relatable. It's not like she went so far left into like the culture that was like, what hair is this? It's like, oh no, we've seen these styles. It's not such a stretch.
Yeah, I didn't even think about like the Supremes. Yeah, I mean it's some of the hair is
Yeah.
very Diana Ross.
Very Diana Ross.
Very
Like, I mean-
Diana Ross.
And it looks good on her too. Like that's just the thing. Like she was so well put together. Like she just always looked top tier.
Yeah.
I mean, all she had was an earbud, so I feel like the hair had to do something. She just had a
It
lot.
has an ear exposed.
Well, and was it focused again? So full disclosure, I am a Star Trek. What do you want to say? Adjacent. Like, there's lots I haven't seen. I listened to your podcast last week, guys, and I now know what happens on Picard season 3 that I haven't watched.
Sorry to spoil it.
I know.
I told you not to.
You wanted to support us.
I wouldn't want to support you, and I just haven't done it yet. I've not watched any of Strange New Worlds. Oh, careful. Anyway, all of this to say, how much of the series was focused in on her face? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
she's in the
because
shot
of that
always.
earpiece.
That's true.
Like,
That's it.
So
it's right here.
So I feel like that had to have been a backstage conversation.
Well,
Exactly.
and Damien has pointed this out before. Her position was right behind Captain Kirk. So whenever the camera was on Kirk, she in her red uniform was the color in the background, you know?
Correct.
So she, in fact, Nichelle Nichols had complained for years and years afterwards about like she felt like she was stuck at that console all the time, and she just had to constantly pretend to be pushing buttons that don't do anything because the camera was always on her. But I think that maybe that they put attention into her hair for that reason, you know. On the second slide, there's this memo from.
This is gold.
It's from the Roddenberry archives. I think the Trek Files podcast did a little episode on this, but so they found this memo because Gene Roddenberry kept everything, and it's from Bob Justman, who was the line producer, saying all of these wigs have been stolen. But what's great is we now know that for sure Nichelle Nichols was in a wig, Majel Barrett was in a wig, and William Shatner was in a wig.
Who didn't know that Shatner's hair was not his own?
I mean, I didn't know it. I didn't know it. I'm sorry.
Fine.
I will open myself up to your ridicule. I can withstand it. But no, the thing that I love about this memo, though, is clearly who stole those wigs. The actors stole those wigs, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
All of the actors stole their wigs. Who else? I mean, if there was a Shatner hairpiece that was stolen by someone other than Shatner, it would have been sold for thousands, if not millions.
Right.
Maybe not at the time, but
now it would go up in auction at Christie's. $4.5 million for William Shatner's original season 1 hairpiece.
For the tribble that lived on Shatner's head for.
Oh my God.
I love the tribbles.
So I did make a Shatner hair slide. So there is a blog called Shatner's Toupee, and it is all about William Shatner and his hair. And all of these pictures are from there. So there are pictures from early in his career where you can see his hair was thinning. The weird thing is he's never publicly acknowledged it. I think it's like a pride thing. And now he's had, like transplants and surgeries and procedures. I mean, he has real hair now. I mean, he can afford to have the best real hair in the world. You know what I mean? But there's a couple, because these shows were never meant to be seen in high def. We now have images where you can clearly see the wig line. Like, am I seeing that wrong? That's a wig line, right?
But it's really good. But it's really good though. Here's the thing.
It's really good.
Even like it's in high def, you get to see it. But like of the time, like they did some serious blending, like picking out that hairline so that it could blend in. That lace is like perfectly his skin tone. Like they worked hard to make it look like it was his hair. It's interesting because I always think of hairpiece. I think of John Travolta, who finally has leaned into his baldness. But for all of that time, like always having on a hairpiece and being like, that can't be his hair, but him never saying anything about it. I feel like, Shatner could have gone that way, but he's too vain to do that. He was like, I need real hair now.
So vain.
Also, it's also, I think, more rampant in Hollywood than I think I even knew. I was listening to another podcast, and Shayan Jackson had this procedure done, and
Oh yeah,
Jinx Monsoon has had this procedure done. Like, I think that, like, it's interesting, that hair matters in this way.
Well,
You know what I mean?
But I wonder, did Jinx have it for feminization reasons to bring her hairline down?
Nope, because Jinx had it because there was thinning.
Oh,
they both did it. They talked about it, I think, on Jinx's podcast. But they said, their hair started to thin, and they felt that wasn't going to work with their life and continue. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
And again, I have no problem with it. It's just interesting that William Shatner still won't talk about it today.
Right.
But maybe it's just generational.
Maybe it's generational. It's like we were watching a documentary on the Broadway musical Tim Save Me, Annie's musical, Stephen Sondheim.
Merrily We Roll
Along, at which Jason Alexander was in when he was very young. And so he appears in this documentary in like a full toupee, and it's like we know, you know what I mean?
You have
like,
no hair, sir.
Right. So it's like it's not that they're lying. I think it's a fashion piece. It's like, I can do this. Of course I can do this. Like, just like women can wear wigs, men can wear wigs if they choose to have different hair that day, And I think that's kind of awesome. But I think it's also very Hollywood. I think it makes him look younger. There's another person going back one slide who famously wore wigs was Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov. When they first cast him, they wanted him to look like Davy Jones from the Monkees because they were trying to bring in a younger generation. So they gave him this wig and then let him grow his hair out in the meantime. And then the second picture there is him without the wig. That's just his normal hair. But he went bald and was wearing toupees well into the 2000s. And then he came to he appeared at a Star Trek convention without a toupee, and it was like headlines. It was like, oh my God. And he was like in his 70s. Like, who cares? You know what I mean?
75-year-old man, bald.
Right. Yeah, that's not a headline. But I just saw a picture of him and the actor who played Chekhov in the reboot movies. May he rest in peace. And so that was 2006. And Walter Koenig is on set to meet him, totally wearing the wig, wearing like the Chekhov wig again. It's interesting. Hollywood and men's hair is a fascinating thing.
Well, in hair, period, right? But like, think about it. You have hair and then you lose your hair, that says something, right? But like, if you show up bald, it's like, oh, that's just your aesthetic. But there's something about losing hair that speaks to aging, that speaks to loss of virility, yada, yada, yada. So a man who's going bald, some people would draw the line to, oh, he's no longer a virile man because he's got no hair on his head, therefore, ergo. I won't complete that sentence.
I mean, famously, I keep saying famously, that's my word today for whatever reason. Patrick Stewart, when he auditioned, they asked him if there was a producer who was worried about him being bald. So he was like, I have a toupee. It's in London. He like had it FedExed over to LA and did one audition with the hairpiece. And they were like, no, thanks. That's sorry, we made you do that. And someone asked Roddenberry, like, how can this be said in the future? And you have this bald captain, like, surely we've solved male pattern baldness by the 24th century. And his answer was, in the 24th century, it won't matter.
It won't matter.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike
can't argue with that.
And jumping down to slide 9 in our little presentation here, someone who rocks the baldness.
Oh yeah. Well, this was another sort of development conversation when they cast Avery Brooks as Sisko, he was known as he was Hawk, right, which was Spencer for Hire spinoff, right? And he was bald with a goatee, which is how we later knew Cisco. And that's how Avery Brooks was sort of comfortable in the world presenting, as bald with a goatee. And there was a little bit of like, they didn't want to confuse him with his previous role. And they didn't want to confuse him with Picard, like a bald captain and followed by another bald captain, which
I didn't think about
that. But he's a commander, not a captain, right?
Sure, but he's still the same. Yes,
the show lead.
Rank, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that they, he very much wanted to present the way that he was comfortable as bald with a goatee. And Paramount came back and they said that they were okay with a black captain or commander, but they didn't want to go street. That was literally what the guy said. And this was in the Deep Space Nine retrospective documentary, right? And the guy who they quoted as saying that was one of the guys who they interviewed for and he's like, well, I don't remember saying that.
Was that Rick Berman?
No, it was not Rick Berman. It was like a Paramount guy.
Okay.
It was like a Paramount guy with like the tennis sweater like draped over his shoulder with the white hair.
You said it, sir. You said it.
Yeah, he said it. He sure said it. You just had to. I'm sorry, but you just had to look at him to know that he said it, and he absolutely said it. And the funny thing was that like all of that sort of like weird roboticness that you sometimes got with Avery Brooks in early Deep Space Nine, like, and maybe it coincided with like, coming into his own in the role, but like what season was this? Do you remember, Mike, when he appears bald for the first time? Because I remember it's like a thing because Cassidy Yates sort of like touches his head and she's like, oh, I like it.
It's like 3 or 4 maybe.
It's the Cisco that we know. It's the Cisco that like goes toe to toe with the Klingons, that like freaking like burns the planet in retribution against Eddington, and but like it is really how he came into his own as the
Yeah, it's like Riker's beard.
I don't want to say the most because we're not trying to go there, but I would say one of the most formidable captains that we have in Star Trek, and that is part of, I think, the actor's comfort in being able to be closer to himself.
Absolutely.
Exactly, to present how he wants to present, and be like, this is how I see Cisco, right? This is how I see this commander, and being told, we'd rather you have hair.
Right. And I think he was shaving his head early on. So I don't know if that's his natural hair in the first couple seasons or if they made him wear something, but it doesn't look normal on him.
It doesn't look good. That's the thing. That's why I always was like, ooh, I don't think that's his hair. I really think that's a hairpiece that was terribly done. Because,
do you think so?
And maybe it's not. It's just a haircut. I hate, and I don't hate many things, but I hate when they put Black men in these non-tapered haircuts. Like, no one's just putting on a one guard.
Yeah, it's a single guard.
No, like there's a taper. Like there's going to be a lineup. There's going to be a couple different trimmers. You're going to have a nice little fade. Like, you want a dark Caesar taper? Cool. But this whole like, here's my hair on my head that's not an actual fro. No, sir.
But tell me this though. Is that and I fully agree with you, but is that a 2023 opinion or is that a 1990 opinion?
That is an opinion of how I think that it is unattractive for men to have unless you have a fro, like a full-on afro, right? And even then, unless it's like huge and mushroomish, like you can have a lineup, you can have a nice little taper situation.
But would that have stood out to you in the same way? Do you think in the year 1990, the way that it's so?
Yes, because the men that I saw, like my father is a barber by trade, so. I've seen a myriad of different haircuts on a myriad of different age gentlemen. The one thing that is consistent, you get a shape up, you get some tapered action, whether it's dark or not. There's always something. And so like this idea of just helmet hair, it never really it igged me out. It was like, sir, it made him seem like a dork.
Yeah.
Like he
Oh
was,
yeah.
Yeah.
Square.
It's like you don't know how to get your hair cut. Like, what are you doing? Like you're doing it like again, you're on a ship with nobody who knows how to do your hair.
They needed a Mr. Mott. They needed a Bolian barber.
Do any series address hair? Is there a salon on board? Do we know?
We see one in TNG.
Because we see Picard getting his hair cut. We see Mr. Mott is a character, sort of. Usually we see him at least twice.
Yeah. And he's cutting hair kind of like in sickbay. He's cutting hair with like a light, you know what I mean? Like like not scissors. And they can also like change the color of the person's hair pretty easily. I think we see that happening in the background. What
Lanita is saying is that whoever is running the salon on Deep Space Nine should be fired.
Right.
And replaced.
Yes. Exactly.
But to be clear, he showed up with that hair.
That's true. He has it in the flashback.
Yep.
Well, speaking of the pilot of Deep Space Nine, let's talk about Kira.
My favorite hair to discuss. It's so tragic.
So this is slide 10. So just one forward.
Yeah.
Slide 10. Yeah.
You say things like Kira. I'm like, who's that? Sorry, keep going. I know. I'm trying to make all your listeners be like, how are you? You're married to one of these people. Sorry.
Because we each have our things. Believe me, not plus one has
Tim, we all know your nerd bona fides are strong, just different.
They're strong, yeah. No. They're just, yeah. I support this. I bought Mike a Starship today at Walmart, and that I hate. I absolutely hate it, but I wasn't going to leave the store without it. So, like, he's sitting with it right now. He's practically hugging it,
caressing.
I know.
Yeah.
I am.
Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
All good. No, like the pilot of Kira, like introducing her, like she didn't seem like an officer. She seemed like a secretary. Like that hair said administrative assistant.
Not rebel, right? Not terrorist, not freedom fighter.
Nope. It said, "How would you like your coffee, sir?"
Oh
no. There was a minute later on in the episode where she gets like a sort of like asymmetrical thing that I swear to God my mom had at the exact same time.
This is what I'm saying. Terrible.
Yeah, this haircut goes with mom jeans. It really does.
This is the hair that probably Amy Poehler or Tina Fey had on that SNL skit with mom jeans.
Mom jeans.
It looks like this still looks like she's actually in the middle of an infomercial. She's gonna sell us a mop.
Probably.
So I did hear an interview with Nana Visitor once about mentioning the hair, and she said that it took a long time. It must be her real hair, but she said that it took a long time to get it done every day. So she one of the things she pushed for was she wanted simpler hair, just because this character would not take time to curl her hair. She just wouldn't, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it is a wig. Maybe she was just making a point about the character. But then they pretty quickly
see on the line on the top, that's definitely her real hair.
That's her hair.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the hairline in both of those, like that's her hairline. Someone like roller set that, had to take it out, round brush that. No. And here's the thing, if she's supposed to be fighting the Cardassians, she needs a cut like the one on the right. You just need a simple, like,
right.
Dare I say, you need a dyke haircut. You just need the cut that says, "I'm here for business."
Yeah, it's not. It's not even like a pixie cut. It is shorter than that on the sides.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a wash and go. It's like I'm in the shower, I wash my hair, I can get out, towel dry it. No fuss, no muss. Don't even put product in it. Just go.
And I would argue that this animated photo is that Lower Decks.
Yes.
That's my favorite one.
Yes.
Like that's actually like they finally nailed it. Like if they could travel
Correct.
back in time with that photo,
Yes.
that's what she needed right there.
Because that is a badass haircut.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so good.
Okay, where do we want to go next? Let's talk about sideburns. Slide 4.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Let's talk about sideburns.
So you may or may not be aware that there is a Starfleet sideburn. It is the pointy sideburn. And I didn't notice this until years and years into watching Star Trek, and it was pointed out. And now I watch for it, but it was definitely there in the original series. And I think, and we have this scan from the original series, hair and makeup people guiding exactly the angle of how to do it. These were stick-ons. They were like they weren't real sideburns. They like stick them on with how do they do that, Tim? Like Tubé tape or?
Yeah, they top stick, which is like a body face tape.
Okay. Because
they might have used spirit gum though, especially in the 60s.
Yeah.
Oh, back then
in the 60s for sure. But like by the time Next Generation came around, they might have been using top stick. But top stick is shiny, so you have to make up the crap out of it. So that's it's used on stage a lot. I don't know how much it would get used on film and television because it's shiny.
Well, do you think that they made like sideburn pieces, right? You know how you like the fake mustaches and beards, like that same type of thing where it's like it's blended in or picked in a way where it could like fold into the rest of the hair.
I think that's exactly it.
Correct. That's exactly it.
In fact, it just hit me where I realized that this happened. In Will Wheaton's book, Just a Geek, he talks about going back on set after years later when he was in Nemesis. And I think Just a Geek, it might have been on his blog anyway, but he said something about like, and they're sticking the Starfleet sideburns on my face and I'm, putting on my spacesuit. And I was like, whoa, sticking sideburns on your face.
What are you talking about?
So the women had big bouffants and the men, to make them look futuristic, had pointy sideburns. It's a weird choice.
It is, but here's the thing. It's not just the men, because if you go back to slide 1, you put in a current picture of Uhura. She's got pointy sideburns.
She does.
So it stayed. It is something that has stayed through the test of time, that if you're going to have sideburns, they're going to be pointy.
They have to be pointy. Yeah, they're doing it in Strange New Worlds now. They did it in TNG. They did it in the JJ movies.
I mean, Burnham has them when her hair is short.
Let's go to Burnham.
I love her so much.
Slide 12.
This to me is one of the best examples of like hair as character change. It really is, because you can really and you do it in the slide here of obviously which is still Vulcan, but it is really a well done hair arc.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like all the Vulcans all have, like no one has textured hair. It's all very
flat, right angles,
flat, straight, blunt,
almost Asian in its straightness.
Exactly. And then it's like the red was like when she was back being I guess on the planet, or what was it? Why was she in the red? Was that when she was back in school?
I think it's a flashback.
It's a flashback where Sarek brings her onto to Georgiou's ship for the first time. Yes.
So it's like she's fresh out of school, full on Vulcan, and then it's like it moves into a nice sort of softer bang, not so angular. And it's like then you turn into, after she crashes, we come back with short, curly, natural. We've stopped relaxing our hair, right? It's like, here I am. I got work to do. I'm in full on fight mode. And then I feel like as we've progressed,
but before we move on, can I just say that's the hair? What?
Absolutely.
That's the hair that like the utilitarian hair, the short hair. that is usually used for her in action figures and Christmas tree ornaments and everything.
Yeah, interesting, right?
And it is my least favorite of her hair. I personally love like as she evolved as a character because I think she grows and yeah, the hair is a part of that.
Yeah, the hair is a part of that. It's like, okay, I don't have to fight like with my I feel like that the short hair is like I'm fighting with my hands. Like I'm bare knuckle boxing, right? And then she's like, okay, back on the ship, it's like now I can put a protective style in, get some braids, like let her rest. But I'm, you know when I'm fighting because I pull it back. Right. Like that third picture where it's like it's still braids, but it's swooped back in sort of like a Janeway low chignon with you still get some funk with the side bigger braid. And then it's like, oh, if I'm relaxed and I'm just on the bridge, okay, braids are down. But it still tells a story with her hair in like a different style. Like, what is she doing when her hair is what way? I always love that, being able to tell where she was in the journey.
Well, and it also just for pure utilitarian purposes, it shows time passing. She has gone to the future for I forget the amount of time that passes, but time passes before Discovery catches up with her. And it's a great visual indicator that she's been in this other time. She's been out of time for a long time waiting for her ship,
Lanita, those braids are real. It's not a wig.
Which ones? So the one
on the far left, the upper left.
No. Yeah. Oh no. That's a wig. That is a terrible. So they've gotten better with her hair. I was not pleased. That was one of my criticisms. I was like, we're in the 2020s, everybody. We can do better hair. It's like the terrible locks on the King in The Walking Dead. Like that wig is terrible. Like nobody's scalp is full of fuzz with huge locks coming out of it. This idea that cornrows, like if you look at my head, these are fresh cornrows. Like you see scalp in between the braids. That is like, we don't.
That's how hair works.
Go ahead.
No. I'm just saying, like, this is like, to me, that top left picture is like, oh, those are old braids because they've grown out, and then your scalp goes away. Like that's how you can tell somebody has older braids in their hair, and your new growth starts. So then you get away from like the clean, crisp parts.
But here's my question about this: is how do you do braids as a wig and make it look real? Can you?
Yes, I think that you can.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a matter of picking out those parts. Like you have a wig, you section it, you give a nice little. This is me not knowing how to do wigs, but this is how I would imagine you do it. You put it on the head, you part it where you're gonna have your braids, the part, and then you pick some of the hair out so that there is a space between each row that you're going to braid. Like you're creating scalp.
So the one time I worked, it was Mike, it was during Ghost, the musical.
Oh, yeah.
The Whoopi Goldberg had an actress, the Whoopi Goldberg character. We had an actress who, when the wigs came in, had braids, and the lace of the wig itself was much more intense than if it was fully covered, right? So like you had to, when you would put the lace on top of it, you would have to blend the person's hair exactly as Lanita described it, would blend the person's hair into it. So that's why I asked on that one, because that's a helmet. That doesn't have any of that because it's a helmet. But some of the others are not, which leads me to my question.
Yes, they're braids. Oh, no. In those other ones, like where they're the long individual box braids, I truly believe that she got box braids done, was like, I'm getting my hair done. And because they have the money to make sure that they're fresh, that she would get the crown, like the front part and the top of her head freshly done, because she's taking care of it. Like she's putting a bonnet on, she's tying her hair up.
Right. But let me ask you, Tim, a lot of these wigs that we see people wearing, are they essentially creating like a sort of fake upper forehead? So what you're seeing is actually I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but I'm literally asking this. And just in general, like, isn't that sort of the idea with a lot of these like film and TV wigs, is that you're seeing that it looks like a real hairline because the top like inch or so or whatever of the forehead is actually not the person's real skin.
Yeah, for sure. Also, like the ever popular, like they're going to move the hairline around because then it keeps it out of their face.
Right.
In a really significant way. And in film and television is different in that way than in theater. Because in theater, we want it to be a helmet in most cases. We don't want it to move. We don't need it to be real because you're going to sweat through it. You're going to do all these things to it. And it's got to
come on and off
be
quick.
good for in 2 hours, like all of that. But
and sometimes you're hiding a mic pack under there.
Correct.
Exactly.
But in order to create in film and television, they get so close to your face, like they need it to feel real. And that becomes a different game. Yeah. But my point still being on her is that is twofold. One, with all of these hair changes, I want to know what she had to do to her own hair in order to keep moving through all of this. And like in a season alone, what would they have to ask her to do in general? Because again, I haven't watched Discovery. That's a lot of hair. How many seasons am I looking at? That's a lot of hair change.
It's 3, but I will tell you that they probably, like, when she was in the shorter hair, she just probably had her hair braided down, like in cornrows. Right. So depending on, because that's the easiest way to get that wig on and the easiest way for her hair to be flat. Because when she was in Walking Dead, she had locks as well as a style. So it's like either braiding it circularly, as you would do if you were going to put somebody's weave in, or cornrowing back. And I felt like she had cornrows back in the ones that look huge on her head. Like that's how I could tell that it was a wig. Like in the blue, like it just looks so big and bulky on her head versus the smaller braids where it's like, oh no, those are actual braids.
Yeah. I popped a picture.
I like it.
I popped a picture from her Instagram in there, which I think is her natural hair, maybe with some
box braids. Yep. Absolutely.
Look at that. Yeah.
And so you see how you can see there's growth. Like, so she's chosen to do a different color for the hair. So you can see that her hair is actually black or super dark brown. And then she's got these blonde braids, but you can see there's new growth between where the knot of the braid is and her scalp versus the picture that we're looking at in the blue where it's just a braid,
a helmet of braids,
a braid on her head. And here's the other thing is that the braids that she has in the later season, it could be done twofold. It could be all individuals, or it could be crochet, where she's braided her hair, which means that like the 2/3 of her head is braided, and then they take braids with a crochet hook, put it through, pull the braid through, and just tie it on. So it looks like individual braids, but instead of having to sit there for 8 hours, it's like 2 hours. And then only the top part of her head is actually individually braided, which would also keep protective and be able to keep fresh through all of the filming and still be able to do all of these different looks with the braids. There's
a hell of a commitment from that actress. So good for her.
I'm popping one more picture in just to be like, when I worked with Sonequa back in Alabama.
Oh my God.
When she was in undergrad and I was in grad school, this was a picture of her playing Mercutio in R&J, and she used her real hair.
See, that's the hair that's underneath that wig. That short wig, that's the hair that's underneath there.
Does she not age? My God.
Well, she's amazing.
Tim,
I mean, she's.
I said Mike. I was looking at you. Tim, sweetie, black don't crack, baby. She's drinking water. That is what she's doing. Okay, that is the key.
How many years in between is that, Mike?
This picture was from 2007.
Oh my!
So
God.
10 years before
Okay.
Discovery.
10, yeah.
Oh yeah, Black don't crack.
So I'm saying,
Oh
you drink your water,
my.
you
Yeah.
mind your business, unproblematic. Your face gets to stay this way. That's the key.
funny.
Wow.
That's funny.
Wow. All right, who's next?
Speaking of Black don't crack, let's look at Guinan, who is hundreds of years old. But chose to age along with her friends in the second season of Picard, strangely. I love the hats, and I feel like the hats were part of just making her hair easier. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, listen, a hat is always like what I mean. When you think about stage theater, like using a phone is a way to have a conversation without someone else in the scene, right? Like it's the easiest way to move a story along without actually having to do blocking and create something. Pick up the phone. Hi, yes. Oh, yeah, you want me to go there? Oh, okay. Scene done.
And I also feel like you would have to argue, I mean, when correct me, somebody, she wanted to be on this show, right? Like she like actively campaigned, like wanted to be on
she
the
did.
show.
Yeah, she sought them out.
She was like one of the biggest stars. She won an Oscar during her run on this show. Like, you know what I mean? So like, who knows what was being asked of her hair throughout like what was probably really paying the bills. So talk about an easy way to like say, it doesn't matter what you got going on underneath there.
Yeah.
We're going to put this hat on you and even like sew these fake braids down the back that we don't need to even attach to your head. And then she could keep that movie career going.
Well, that's true. Also I feel like they were constantly rearranging around her schedule. To like there were episodes like we talked about the Beverly Crusher episode several weeks ago, the Suspicions, where she wasn't even in the episode, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh shoot, Whoopi's free, write her in, and then there was a lot of sort of working around her availability.
Yeah.
And if you have limited time for an actor, you don't want to spend the entire thing in hair and makeup. You want to, like you said, put the hat on. You want
to get her out as fast as you can. Yeah.
But the thing is that she had locks. She still does, right? Her locks are now different. Like she's doing gray. I feel like she's wrapping her locks and making her locks be faux locks, which is such an interesting thing. Like to give them a different type of look and style. I always thought the hat was like cultural, right? Like if she's an oracle, where it's like. And in the picture, like there's one time where you see her with her natural hair, aside from in Picard in the distant future past, in the past where it's like she hasn't yet put on it, but she still has sort of like the way that they have is sort of like a crown. So it's like, is the hat sort of because she's an oracle? Is it because I was looking up like what are the functions of hats for women? Oh, because you're married. Like with Hasidic Jews where you wear your natural hair to get married, but once you're married, you go into a room and put on a wig, and now that is how you are as a married woman. No one gets to see your hair again except your husband.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, I went down a whole Instagram rabbit hole. Like it came up in a For You. It's like, oh, what's this? And literally, the minute the ceremony is over, the bride is ushered into a room where there are hairstylists who have wigs that have been pre-selected, and they put the wig on her and it looks as if it's her hair. There was a whole
Is this a Hasidic thing? Is that
it is a Hasidic Jew thing where you're not, once you are married, no one but your husband can see your hair or should allowed. It's cultural. So I don't know if should is the word, but it's like it's not permitted like for any other man to see your hair. And there was a whole thing where a woman would walk around the wedding and go, you're married, wig or not wig? And it'd be like, married, wig, not married, my hair. Like, and it was a whole thing where it's like, there's a whole group of women, like, out of the 10 of them, 6 were married and 4 were not. And it's like, yep, I got a wig. Nope, I don't. So I wonder, because she is married. She has been married. So again, is she wearing a hat to cover her hair because only her whatever husband she's on is supposed to see her hair, right? And the only time we see her without it is like when she's in her chamber, like maybe one episode I found where it's like you see her without.
I feel like that was generations in the movie, right? Her room full of candles, right?
It's just one episode ever where it's like, okay, she's in her most natural state where you get to see her without it. I mean, she's fencing Picard with her hair in some type of covering. She's with Data in the holodeck. She's still got a hat on in the 1800s.
Right.
I always just thought it was
commented on the hat.
I always just thought it was supposed to sort of make her seem alien, or to make her sort of otherworldly. That this fashion of hat that no one else wears.
She didn't have eyebrows. That makes her otherworldly.
She doesn't have eyebrows, right?
She never has.
But that's not for Guinan. That's for
that's a whoopee. How about young Guinan? What do we think of her look as compared to the one that we know?
Did this actress have to shave her eyebrows? I bet she did.
Very good question. She may have.
What is that from?
It's from second season of Picard. We see her much younger.
Yes. She is in her 20s.
I mean, sort of. Is that what we think, that she's in her 20s?
I'm calling it 20s, like in the grand scheme of things, like
right. She's a young adult in her species, which is like 200 years older, something like that.
Exactly. She's presenting in the 20 to 29 range. She's not 30. I'm telling you, she's not that old in this.
Right.
In the species world. She's still in her wild 20s, figuring it out, working at the bar, trying to quit. I think that, again, I think this is pre-marriage, like having real relationships. So again, it's like she's still youthful, finding her way, knowing that like maybe that's the way that older women eventually dress, look, present. Because it always, honestly, it kind of reminds me of a church hat. Like Guinan, she was like a mix between sort of who is it? What's that? Karen. She's a designer. Can't remember her name. She does a lot of flowy thing. White lady. Karen. I want to say her first name is Karen, or come on, gays. What is happening? Like, oh goodness.
And a white lady named Karen. You haven't narrowed it down.
Designer.
A designer.
You're not talking about Betsy Johnson, are you?
No, she is wild and has no. I'm gonna look it up, but don't worry. Anyway, like her style is very bohemian, but also like when she was dressed up, it reminded me of like good outfit Sunday church.
Whoopi has said, and this might be a joke, but she has said that in her mind, the hats represented the ship because it's the shape of the Enterprise saucer section.
But they weren't all saucery shape. They were
right, they were. But that's just what she says.
Which, by the way, the honest truth probably is that nobody thought it through. They just thought it looked cool.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We could be going very in depth into something that's just like it was a choice that some rando made. They're like,
can you imagine that happening on a Star Trek fan podcast?
Never.
Oh my goodness.
Shall we move over to our favorite counselor?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the elephant in the room. I mean,
we have to talk about Troi and the Betazoid hair. And what they tried to do in the beginning. Damien found these test photos of possible hair for the pilot, and then it's like a Captain Janeway ends up with a bun of steel. It's bigger than a bun. It's like, I don't know what is on her head.
It's a fez. It's a fez of hair.
Well, and obviously, we start with what they call it, the cosmic cheerleader look.
Yeah.
And with the weird, like woven wicker kind of headband, right?
Yes, you're right.
And then the next episode, she's got the bun, and it's amazing. It aged her like 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Like she kind, I mean, I'm like looking at, is there like a straight man that can? No, I was talking about did she lose her sex appeal entirely? Like I feel like she kind of did in that first season.
So that glamour shot down there.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Where is that in the timeline? Was
that's earlier? So I had showed Tim some of these images earlier, and he said he wanted to see a picture of her without knowing that she's not wearing a wig to kind of see what is and what isn't. So these are modeling pictures from her before she did TNG, when she was doing Skinamax movies.
I would say so. My guess is that glamour shot and then the one to the left of the test shots, her hair is incredibly thin, which she, like, you're saying that like it aged her. I would argue that thin hair was like up and stuff aged her. I mean, she just looks, it's just not cute. So it's like I suddenly understand the like extensions. Also, because she's of Greek descent, right?
Yes,
she's fully Greek.
Yeah, in that, like, that's also not necessarily typical to have thin hair like that. Usually it looks big and gigantic. I mean, that bottom left corner, she looks like she's, Nia Baldalus's sister in My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Like, exactly what I was
You're
thinking.
right.
I was like she really
it's like they nailed it. It's like, so
but can you talk to me about the bun look though? Like like I have always asked this since I was a small child. Like, what is actually going on there? Like, what is what?
What do you mean? Like
what is her hair? What is
not
how?
her hair?
How is it fixated on? Fixed to her?
Are you talking to the upper left?
I'm talking about the upper left, which, if you're not looking, is the season 1.
You think it's a complete wig, Tim?
I do. I think it's a complete wig. Because I think that her hair was, if this is a new theory that I just came up with. If her hair was really that thin, as thick as they've made that look, I don't know how they would have done it without making a full wig.
I thought that it was let's comb an entire circle perimeter 2 inches of her hair, right? Put the rest of her hair in a ponytail situation and then add girth to it with fake hair and then pull her hair over it like a cone.
Yes, I mean, that's possible, but I just also, the amount of time that would have taken,
Fair enough.
Maybe they did it. I can't see a wig line necessarily, but I also would argue if it was because of the thickness in the front, it would definitely be a hard front wig. Because again, TV in the 80s, it doesn't really matter because you were never meant to see it.
Gotcha.
I think it's a wig.
Listen, I will defer. I just know a little back combing.
No, it's I think that only she could tell us.
Only her stylist knows for sure.
Marina Sturgis, if you're listening,
we got some questions.
We have questions.
I do have a picture of her. Well, it's hard to find pictures of her that are. I mean, I guess there's what's the word I'm looking for? Convention shots, but even then she's like in public. So here's a picture of her fairly recent. And I don't think her hair is too thin now, but I mean, who knows what,
Yeah, but if you look at the part situation,
sure.
The amount of hairs per square inch of her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's some of that. What is that spray that they put on the roots, like the puffy? I don't know about it because I don't have to use it. But like, there's that whole thing, like, oh, your hair, you want to make it dirty, and then it makes it fuller, and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And everyone looks like they have fuller hair when they have a fan blowing on them, which is exactly what's happening.
Which is what's happening in this picture.
Don't pretend for a second that she doesn't have a fan blowing in her face to make it look bigger.
She absolutely does.
but it's a light fan. It's on medium. It's not on high. It's on like a low.
Yeah.
And there's someone there who's waving it. It's not just a static
Correct.
fan. It's someone who's giving a little to the left, click, 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 a little to the right.
So
when we get the Troy hair that we sort of settle into, right? We see it on the lower left, which is like her season 7 hair, or like her mid-run hair. We see that like second from the upper right.
Yep.
Do we think that is the same sort of, the full thing has been prepared ahead of time and she shows up in a wig cap and they plop it on? Or is that front part her hair that is over some sort of donut and then they attach the fall to it?
I feel like it's Ariana Grande. I feel like it's what you said. There's a donut and it's over, and then they gave her.
So maybe the front poof actually is her hair.
Yeah, it could very well be. More so than the upper left. Here's the other thing too, is that if you look at the side view with all the different lengths, that's not one wig. That's individual pieces.
Yeah,
that's it. That's a drag queen stackable wig. There's like 4 wigs in that wig.
Because I would also argue,
right. I would never have noticed that.
TNG is the one I've watched enough. If you go episode by episode and the length changes, because I bet what they did was they either was inconsistent on who was putting it in, or they would go, oh God, it just looks so big today. Don't put those last 5 in. And then all of a sudden, it's
there was no continuity. There was no one going, well, her hair used to hit her shoulder blades. Like, we don't care. Today, it's hitting her shoulders. We can't do it.
Yeah.
In the future, you can have whatever hair you want.
Right. It's the 24th century. Literally day by day, you can change your hair length in whatever direction you want. I'm certain.
I mean, it's like the Jetsons. You want different fingernail color? Or no, in the Fifth Element, the girl is sitting at the desk going, changing it from blue to red, just sticking it in the little thing. Like, it's that type of deal.
So here's another question. That some of you, that you'll all have to answer for me, is that, was there ever a scene, because I just don't remember, is there a scene where she's like home alone in bed with her hair is not up? Because that's okay, so it's like up in this thing, right? If she let it down, it should be like
on her
choking her in her sleep.
Well, when we first, I have a very strong memory of this, that I almost wish that I had now gone back and like taken a screen capture of this. The beginning of season 2, the child, where she gets impregnated by a floating energy ball that is wandering the ship, right?
Yes, like
and
you do.
She's right, and she's like in her bed, and all of a sudden she does like a little like writhing and moaning, and then she sits up alarmed, and the hair is just everywhere, right? She has like a giant mop of like curls in every direction, and it does not by the way make any sense with what it looks like in the next scene, but it does show her as having a tremendous amount of hair.
Tremendous.
Okay, does she ever go crawling through a Jeffries tube? Because that's a hazard, that hair. That's gonna get caught in something.
First of all, I love that you pulled out Jeffries tube. Proud hubby.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That's amazing.
This is a love story, you guys.
I literally just Googled, like, I was like, oh, season 2, Deanna Troi. And like this picture comes up of like the multitude of hair, but hair that I forgot about, her in a mud pit with it like this of like beehive, giving us like 1960s original series hair with the tendrils, like she is, a Greek goddess.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they're in the mud pit with Alexander
with
and her mom.
Yep.
That's so funny. So when they brought her back for Picard, this is just a funny story. Oh my God. Sorry. Now I'm seeing the image that you're giving us. That is so much hair in her head. That is some Amy Winehouse hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they tried to make her go to rehab, but she said no.
She said no. When she got the call to do Picard, season 1, she said, "Oh, I have my wig from Nemesis." So apparently she kept it. So on the right there's a picture of her in Nemesis, and then in Picard, it's the same wig years later that she had kept. There you go.
Yeah,
It's
bangs
dry.
are not her friend.
No, the bangs don't work for her.
She needs
No, it
it
doesn't.
off because her face. She's got such a strong, striking face. Like
Mhm.
the eyes, the jawline. It needs to breathe.
Well, my grandmother taught me when I was a small child. Goldie Hawn will always have bangs because she's hiding her facelift scars.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. There's that. Speaking of faceless, let's move to, that's really mean of me, but let's move to Dr. Crusher, slide 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm of this firm belief
That
that season 1 was entirely her own hair.
and season 1 is upper left-hand corner.
Upper left-hand corner where you see her where she's the most auburn.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
that middle pictures, those three, that upper left next to it and the one right below it seem like her hair.
No, I don't think we ever, my understanding is that somehow there was something with her hair that
there always
which is was something with her hair in season 1 that was like that was like a production issue with lighting it on the bridge set because of the color and because of the way that it caught the light, that somehow all tied up with whatever sort of like drama she had with showrunner Maurice Hurley, right? That got her fired, and that she came back in season 3 and we never saw her real hair again.
See, I'm of the belief that we don't see her real hair in season 1 either. The picture in the middle at the bottom is from Labyrinth because she was the choreographer for Labyrinth. So it's from a Labyrinth documentary. So that's definitely her real. Oh, and I shouldn't say
That's
definitely,
her
but that's her real hair.
No, that's her hair.
And I think that it's so much lighter than we see in TNG. I think that they wigged her from the beginning, or maybe not from the beginning, but
we have this thing called hair dye. It's really amazing.
Thank you, Tim. That's what I was thinking.
Maybe they dyed it because the color was a problem.
Here's the thing. So the bottom left, the volume on that is either hours in a makeup chair or at 45 half hour to 45 minutes in the wig room. Yeah. And it looks much more full than I would argue the upper left would have been able to necessarily do. So I think that the best shot at real hair if that's a season 1 photo, that argument you could convince me of. Okay. But the bottom left is definitely a wig. And Barbara that one in the middle could go either way.
Which one in the middle? The one that she's in her uniform?
The top one. Because
the top one, which is season 7. If you're not actually looking at our slides, season 7 Beverly hair
wig.
Yeah, I mean, people wear wigs of their own hair all the time.
Sure.
All the time because they already know how it works, how it so forth and so on. That's a time saver. You know who famously wears wigs of their own hair is Kristen Chenoweth, like all the time. Like she has like publicly stated, I don't have time. Sometimes I do my hair the night before and slap it on and go.
Well, it's like it makes me think of that Dolly Parton moment where someone asked her, how long does it take you for your hair to get your hair like that? And she says, I don't know. I'm never there when it happens. she only wears wigs.
It takes a lot of money to look this cheap. I love it.
Yeah.
I love Dolly. Well, here's the thing, that the lower left-hand Crusher hair, like it is very reminiscent of Barbra Streisand hair. Like that is full-on Babs,
don't rain on her parade.
Absolutely.
100%.
What always bummed, wrong word. What always was curious to me is how, as a doctor, you're doing surgery, ma'am. Tie your hair back. Like,
oh, but wait, you see her in the red suit with only her face popping out. Yes.
The Whipple or whatever.
Oh,
yes.
Funny.
That is funny.
The red surgical suit. Well, it's burgundy.
Which we love. No, it's Him. Ox
Maroon.
blood. It's
Ox blood. Forgive me. Forgive me. But do we? I also, by the way, I feel like I have a strong suspicion that one of us could like post this slide on Twitter and tag Gates McFadden, and she would walk us through exactly what's what. I feel like if you look at her on Twitter,
you do that.
You know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna.
Please do.
It's Damien. We want the real answer.
Maybe we'll take that upper right picture off because it's not a flattering face that she's making.
But I
you're
I
making
do like
yeah.
You know, I like the fact that the white, like the rogue of it all. That
yes.
So I have a thing. I love it when women let their hair gray.
Yes.
Like and whatever the tone of gray is. There was a woman who lived in the same building as my great grandfather, and she lived a floor above, and she had this beautiful white hair, and it was always like perfectly done and coiffed. And it's like whenever I see like a woman who's like, "Yep, my hair is going gray. I'm just gonna let it go," like that little streak in front of her. I think it's very becoming on her.
Yeah, it you know, and her hairline has moved way back. And there's something about the white and the way that she does it that like just makes her. It's great for her face. She looks great.
The two tone is really smart. And that's clearly what the actress is doing, and they use that for the character at the same time.
Yeah,
and
it's very distinguished.
It's very distinguished.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, I think she
ladies.
looks. I think she looks
ahead,
great, and I just love it.
I was going to say on the note of turning gray and white. I mean, the person who has gone with the most color leaving his face, slide 7, the one, the only, Mr. Worf.
Oh yes, and I am a strong believer in the Worf, like the direction of his hair growth over the years.
Yes,
absolutely.
Each one, chronologically, is an improvement over the one before. And actually, this was I was listening to Michael Westmore be interviewed recently, the guy who is the head of makeup for Star Trek for decades. Talk about the actor that gave the most feedback was always Michael Dorn, and that that a lot of this hair change over the years was at his suggestion.
Yeah, he from what I understand, didn't like the picture that's, I guess, sort of in the lower left, but it looks kind of like it's like a page boy cut.
Yes. He didn't like the bob.
Yeah,
that's a bob.
Because it doesn't.
It's
like it's not very Klingon. You know, it might have worked for B'Elanna Torres, but it's not great for.
Hers had more volume. She was like
true.
She had some volume in it. It doesn't Child Alexander have the same haircut?
He does.
So like
he does.
Maybe it's too juvenile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's adolescent hair. It's like, the British, like they don't wear pants until they're potty trained. Like you're always in short.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Exactly.
I forgot that he has the same hair.
Yeah, he does. I do love the when it starts to grow and we just get that single sort of leather tie where it's like he got in the shower, he washed his hair, did a little brush, pulled it back, tied it around. I'm ready to go. Out of my hair, I can go be a warrior for another day.
Right.
Yes.
And speaking of helmet, this poor guy, because like it's like a literal helmet. So the forehead's going to be attached to the hair and so forth and so on. You got to wonder, when sweat started dripping into his eyeballs, he must have been unhappy because it's just like it would pool and it's going to come out right at the eye.
That doesn't breathe. Yeah.
At all. What do you think? It's they were probably doing foam, and I only know this because I used to watch Face Off and watch those people. They're like, I'm going to cast in silicone, which is so difficult, and I'm going to use foam. Da 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 da. I wonder if they learned, like, if they carved it out enough and then put something in there to absorb the sweat And if there was a way that it got too wet, so like there was a little hole maybe in the side where the hair is, where it can be pulled out and repacked.
Sure.
Well,
sure.
and don't we think that a lot of these aliens have hair the way they have them because as an alternative to having the prosthetic go all the way back to the back of their head and into the back of their neck? Like, for instance, I know that the original intention was to have the Cardassians be bald, and that doesn't that make so much more sense because they're kind of lizard-like, right? To have them be bald, and that it became an expense, especially on something like Deep Space Nine, where there were so many of them.
Also, like, they have such a strong face and neck situation. What are you going to do on the back? Like, how boring is that? That it would just be like a flat head, or are we sticking another spoon on the back of your head? Like,
maybe a fork.
More spoons everywhere. Yes.
I feel like that's what happened with the Ferengi, because the backs of their heads, like where the head meets the neck, didn't really work. So then they just like stapled fabric over it and made it part of the costume.
Right, because I think they didn't want to build it, but they built one for Quark. Quark was the only Ferengi who didn't have one of those because they had to.
He did. He got a full head. He didn't have a visor. He didn't have a head visor. Quark.
And clearly, unfortunately, Michael Dorn was probably the test subject because Neelix has some version of that too. They probably had it down to a science to make other people probably benefited from his suffering.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely, but it's really well done. Like the integration of his hair into the prosthetic is phenomenal. Like, and you can see it even more in the more recent Picard series. Like, just how perfect. It's like, no, he's not balding. His hair just turned white. Like, he still has the same amount of hair that he did in the original TNG.
And his Klingon genes were good. Yeah,
exactly. And his mustache finally connected. Oh, Neelix.
Sorry, I just wanted to pop up this picture of Neelix.
Yeah, but like it's a lot of the same. Like, I mean, it's even closer.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
it's funny. Okay, let's talk about speaking of hair being a problem. Let's talk about Janeway.
Oh yeah.
Slide 11.
A problem.
Kate Mulgrew has been very public about how in the beginning everything like was there's something wrong with her hair. There's they were nitpicking every little thing. So on this slide, the first two on the left are from The Caretaker, the pilot episode, from the first few days when they were shooting before they reshot. That's her real hair. And they said that it was too thin. So then they gave her what fans affectionately call the bun of steel. Which is, like a Katharine Hepburn school marm.
Well, and
exactly how you describe it.
It's the issue here seems to be struggling with a balance between strength and femininity. I mean, that seems to be what it all comes down to, because her hair that they're calling too thin. And by the way, she was on the cover of TV Guide before Voyager came out. Like, that was one of the first images released, and it was with her real hair.
Yes. The
hair that they ultimately at some point hated so much that they scrapped the footage and reshot for a third time, right?
Yes.
Which is bananas. And and for what? Because I never understood the bun.
Well, and eventually they got rid of the bun and let her have something that arguably looks kind of like her real hair, but that like sort of shoulder length. I don't know what you would call that.
I mean, it's a Hillary Clinton helmet, is what
it's Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Well, it was the 90s.
Yeah,
it was the 90s. It was very 90s, actually.
And we think that is just a plopped on her head wig.
Which one? The
helmet hair that we know for the the latter half of the show.
Here's the thing.
I don't know.
Is it a half wig? Tim, do you think it's like a half piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the back is full, and they feathered it in.
I think it's her real hair, because if you look at those all the way to the left, like they just put some Aquanet in that shit and it was fine. Like, because her hair wasn't thin at all. It was just like flat.
It was flat. It wasn't
just
thin, it was flat. There was no body. That's the thing. It's like they gave her with the bun and the pompadour, it's like they gave her body. And again, if you look at her hairline, that's her hair in the front. Like I'm telling you, they did those. Whether they use the little donuts to make the bun or put in that little headband to help it stay up. I truly believe like the first 3 inches of her hair, or like they did a full circle to put her hair down in front of her face, did whatever here, and then pulled it over like you would do a piece of, croissant onto a ham and cheese. I don't know. I don't know where that imagery came from. But
it's not that complicated, whatever it is. Like she wasn't in the chair very long to get that.
That's like 20 minutes. It's like come in with your hair washed. You're coming with your hair clean and blow dried. We got this.
Yeah.
Do you have a memory of her Year of Hell hair, which was probably the shortest version that we saw of her helmet hair? That and I don't know why that episode sticks in my mind for her hair, but it felt like the moment where they kind of like got it right, and then it didn't last for very long.
Yeah, it was the first time that they'd done really short hair. I'm trying to find a good picture of it. I mean,
have we seen her?
When?
What do you mean?
Like, has she made any appearances post Voyager? Besides the cartoon?
Only in the cartoon. Oh well.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, because her face and stuff is filled out so much. I would love to see what choice they make when they put her in. If that 7 of 9 series happens, like clearly we're going to get to see what's really happening, because these animated characters is not the face she has now.
No, and it's not meant to be current, right? It's meant to happen a few years after Voyager, whereas the 7 of 9 stuff that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. She looks like Richard Simmons in that photo you just put up.
I hate you, Tim. That's so funny.
I mean, it is the most Butch Janeway we get. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a picture from her modern hair on. She has enough hair. Like, it really is not thin today, even. Here she is holding a doll of herself.
But look at the pompadour. Do you see what I'm saying?
Look at the pompadour.
Why I tell you that is. Look at how it's a simple back tease. Flip that sucker over it, because I do a lot of deep dives on people doing hair on Instagram. Like, this is why I know about it.
Yeah. So when I just did a Victorian show. And all the wigs that I bought had the hairstyle, and then you took the bun and you put it where you wanted it and you just clipped it in. That's all they were doing on her. Because if you look at that one photo, I don't know how to move any of this stuff, Mike. Oh no, I'm doing it. I'm figuring it out. If you look at this bun right here, that bun right there, that's fake. They clipped
they pinned that sucker in.
It's like, here was the bun. They were like, go here, boom, 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 we're in.
Yep.
So yeah. Lanita has convinced me. I think that all that front's her real hair for sure.
And I feel like it's truly all her hair. They just made pieces. Like, if you look at the front twist, it's like there's a piece in there to help it stay in that shape. Like, they made a halo, put it on her head, and then combed all the hair over and
Yeah, but
don't you think that all of this sort of like controversy about Janeway's hair, the fact that we're still talking about it, is like goes back to like their dilemma of they just could not figure out in that time period how to make. Oh my God, what is the face you're making, Lanita? She's gonna barf all over me right now. But it's true that they could not figure out how to make her a woman and strong and feminine and balance all of these things that that should be able to make perfect sense within the same individual, that somehow they were so overwrought about all of it. We got all this weird hair.
That face was because Chakotay, and I had a flashback to our shipping episode.
Oh,
The fact that they made that. Bleh. So that's what that was. That was that immediate reaction. But yes, but that's the problem to this day. Like that women have to try to figure out what hair, like how can I present myself that is feminine enough or less intimidating, right? Like Janeway was a bad ass captain. She was smart. She was resourceful. She thought out of the box. Yes, she followed Starfleet, but sometimes she'd be like, we got to throw that out and figure out what we can do to get the job done. And I feel like hair should have been the last thing. It's like, it's a utilitarian style, right? We didn't see her with her hair down unless she was on shore leave or dating some frivolous man. It's like a Rockette French twist. Like, got to be up, out, so we can keep going. And I don't know why it was such a big deal. Like, let her have a little pop and a swoop and keep it pushing.
Right.
So let me transition then and say, you are exactly correct, right? So what the hell is happening in Strange New Worlds with this? Like, he always looks like he just got up from a hangover and went straight to work.
Excuse me.
Wait, are we talking about Captain Pike?
You leave Captain Pike alone. Captain Pike is a man's man who enjoys finer things in life, and his hair is an extension of his virility and his ability to take charge. And he said, you're going to love this silvery gray, because guess what? I have been some higher. I love it. I love it. It is reminiscent of the times, like the Dean Martin, the Rat Pack era. Like, put him in a
reminiscent of my erection for him. All right. All right.
Daddy Pike.
Okay. I agree with the style, but it always looks a mess. Why are we using the Suave hairspray and not the Aquanet? That's just my question.
He doesn't want it to be crunchy. He wants it still to have a little bit of, if you run your fingers through it, it's not going to get caught. It's like, it's a little bit of pomade, that Dax pomade. And a brush.
Can you please explain to me the difference between the Suave and the Aquanet, Tim?
Aquanet has glue in it. Aquanet very famously has glue in it that is healthy. I'm using my quotation fingers. You can't see it. That is
I can see it.
That is healthier for your. I'm to the people. I'm
sorry,
using my quotation fingers.
People. Sorry, people.
Is that it has glue in it that is good for your hair, which is like, it's why Aquanet went from like mainstream to basically wigs and theater, because once it gets put in, only water will take it out. Whereas, Suave is like heat and humidity, all of those things come into it. But if you put a little Elmer's glue on your drag queens when you do your eyebrows, that shit's not moving until you like take it off. And that's just what Aquanet is. So it often becomes harder, crunchier, like it doesn't move.
So you're thinking that his hair has too much movement? Is that what you're saying?
He wants Aquanet.
Well,
he wants stiff hair.
Yeah, I want it stiff. I want it to like not look so like messy. I don't like that from angle to angle, like it's clearly the same day and it's moved.
And the hair moves. Hair moves. He's got a good haircut though. Here's the thing: is that if I do like
the styling.
But here's the thing: I feel like this hair, if it were a relaxed time and like it's not done, like him out of the shower, it's more like laid down, sort of on his face, like a nice little bang situation. Like I want to see that hair. Wet.
When he's like cooking for his girlfriend in the breakfast,
and like I've just gotten out of the shower. I've put on my towel and. Yes, Mike. I'm sorry.
You could have stopped it, just got out of the shower.
Oh, I forgot. I am on podcast with men who love men.
Lanita.
Yes.
I would argue that he's not wearing fake sideburns.
No.
I don't think he is.
I think that he embraced that triangle and was like, I don't really care.
I'm telling you, he said, how do you want my hair to be? I got you.
Yeah. Are there any pictures of him like off the set, like speaking for Lanita's wanting to see it like down and wet?
Yeah,
and, like what does
normal Pike look like outside of the world?
I'm on his Instagram.
Like when he's not on set.
It's either that hair or he's wearing a hat or it's
so was that the style
older.
he was already doing and he walked into the audition and they're like that?
It could be. I mean, what is original? But original Pike has this hair because it's original series, yes?
Well, we see him when we see him on Discovery, he's got, I mean, a different variation. I mean, it's on the slide. It just is a little bit.
Oh, here's an interesting picture.
A little bit more classic.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, this is making for great podcasting.
Yeah, as we all get very silent.
I know.
Until you.
Yeah. Do you? Okay, here's another conspiracy theory. Are you ready?
Yes.
Do you think that this is is this like a call up to the fact that Shatner didn't have hair, so they're overdoing it?
No,
Too much? Too conspiracy theory?
Slightly, because that's a terrible. Oh, here we go. He in the original series, he had good hair.
Oh yeah.
He had Pike had good hair. So they just made it slightly bigger. It's the same ilk, but they just said, let's give him more. And that picture of him with his disheveled hair, he needs a haircut.
Yeah, I know.
But see what I'm saying? It's like loose. Like that's him on a relaxed day versus when he's in the captaincy chair and he's like, okay, I gotta brush it back. But I still want there to be movement so that people can know if I'm serious. So my hair can, oh, hello. Yeah.
Well, also, he's got the hair of a man whose life is a ticking countdown to the chair. He's going to be in that beeping chair with his face burnt off at a certain point, and he's going to have the hair that he wants, and it's going to be big and bouffantish. And fuck you,
because that's all we'll be able to see is the hair.
His hair's going to be burnt off.
This is the one that I didn't pull. I was like, oh, that's tragic, but that is exactly.
Is that? I don't care.
That's exactly right. Oh my god. What did you?
No,
you put the picture of from the original series.
Yes.
Oh my god.
So good.
Poor Pike.
Poor Pike.
Oof. Poor Pike.
Oof.
Yeah.
Still has good hair though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the hair is still great. The hair is on point.
The hair is still great.
Protect the hair. Burn my face off. Protect the hair.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
That's amazing.
As we go through this, you see that with the men or male presenting characters, it was I think it was easier, right? It's like bald, not bald. Wig, no wig. It didn't seem to be a truly long conversation. With with all of the women, it's like, how high is the hair? How much hair are we adding? What color do we want the hair to be? What does it say about their role? Like, Deanna Troi, she was a counselor, so she could have looser sort of standards with her hair. Crusher is a doctor, so looser-ish standards. Captain Janeway is like, no. You are a captain. You have to be rigid. It's got to be very to the point. Kira, who knows? She's Bajoran. They didn't really care, honestly. And I don't think that anybody really said she needs to have a certain hairstyle. It was sort of like, this one just looks better for her face. Because that short hair looks better for her face. Guinan, she put on a hat. She had locks. They said, we're going to work with you. I feel like Burnham is now, I think she maybe have her own agency, right? There's a discussion about her character. and what hair means for her.
Sure.
Mhm.
I mean, think about
Um,
all of the characters we haven't talked about in their hair. Like, what's her at the console in Discovery? No, in
Oh,
Picard.
you're talking about
Oh,
Detmer at the
Detmer.
pilot on Discovery. Yeah, with her who has to shave half of her head every season to do that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just from a storytelling place, hair is the easiest way to show passage of time. Like,
Mhm.
because they can only do so much when you're filming something. I like what's the episode where Picard like has a whole life and dies? Like, remember, like
The Inner Light.
how they like
Mhm.
him aging and he like
Yeah.
looked god awful. And modern Patrick Stewart, they didn't do it. It didn't happen
Right.
that way.
Right.
But like,
Yeah, he
so.
gets longer hair too. Yeah. It's like longer on the sides. Well, because
Mhm.
But
the wit,
also, I was going to
sorry.
say, I love that you mentioned Detmer though, because it was that hair story is the story of the Klingon War. It is the blame on Burnham. It is the damage that Burnham did to her is like front and center on the bridge at all times. It is Hera's story for sure.
Yeah. Though it's interesting that the women, when they're off duty, often have completely different hair, and that's not true for the men.
Absolutely. Look at Rafi.
Yeah.
Rafi, we didn't even touch Rafi. I mean,
No, we
that's a
didn't.
whole other episode.
But I like the fact that there are so many. I feel like there are more variations of women's hair than men's hair, and I
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like it seems like in standard Starfleet regulation, it makes sense that the men, because you think about the military, men have to have hair that is a quarter inch long. It can't touch your collar. It can't be, well, Pike, he doesn't care. It can't be so high. It can only be like 2 inches long, but he's a captain, so they let him do what he wants. Women, it's slightly more relaxed, but yet and still, they still have regulations, except for Troy because she's a counselor and nobody really cares. But everyone else, it's like there's some regulations that they're following. I think if you lined up all the women on the bridge cruise, you would see that there's like, oh, there's some similarity to what they're allowed, air quotes for the listeners, and not allowed, air quotes, to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's interesting what they've done with the number one, because they've made her hair look more like Majel Barrett's hair as number one, and it is long in a way that like nobody else's hair really is.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. I don't have pictures of that, but
well, it'll be interesting to see where they go with it if it changes from that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So have we wrapped up the hair?
I think we
not to be splitting hairs, but I don't know. I couldn't not do it.
No, it's one of those things where it's like, honestly, it could be a multi-episode. Like we could literally say, let's talk about alien hair. Let's talk about,
yes, right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
all those aliens on Voyager that had like feathers in their hair.
Oh my gosh, exactly.
Okay, well, I really want to thank Tim for joining us and bringing his expertise in wig world.
Thank you, Tim.
Yay! So good
if you have liked what you've heard today, make sure to give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on Hailing Freak Open on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or at hailingfrequenciesopen.com. I want to thank my co-host Damien and Lenita, as always. Thank you all for putting all this time and research into this, and always being up for it. So, any other parting words?
Happy Pride Month, people.
Happy Pride. Good hair to all.
Happy
Amen.
Pride.
Amen. Hailing frequencies closed.